Apps are dead. It's just a fact. The app market is not what it once was. There's an app for that is no longer a slogan. And if you're looking to become an app developer, you might want to think again. We're going to talk about exactly why apps have started to die out, what is next, and what you could do to be part of what I'm calling Operation Your Future. All right, guys, so we pretty much all know that we have these devices, iPhones and Androids, and we have access to endless apps. But do you want endless apps? I would bet no, you don't. In fact, most of you almost never download apps. And we've had the top 25 apps forever now. Search engines, social media, messengers, etc. And for the most part, most of these apps have kind of had their winners and their losers. And that's kind of the direction we've gone as a society. Now, in 2011, apps were huge. And if you want to become an app developer, that was the future. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. We've seen this cycle repeat in history. And we're going to talk about exactly what's next. And no, it's not AI. No, it's not autonomous vehicles. No, it's not cryptocurrency. There's a couple structures that are in place now for entrepreneurs to capitalize, but more importantly, for the future of what's possible. Now, I know you might be saying, well, Cody, I've seen a few apps blow up. You know, TikTok blew up, Camden up. Yes, giant companies could pop up when there's a massive need and billions of dollars behind it. Parler had a big come up. Why? Because the deplatforming. But Parler, ironically, got deplatformed off the entire internet by getting kicked off the app stores, and then ultimately had their servers from AWS dropped, and bye-bye Parler. So the reality is you're going to see some unicorns, but it's going to be fewer and far between. Let me break this down real quick, and then we'll get into what's next. So when I was a kid in the 90s, TV stations were all the craze. Creating a new TV station. When my parents were kids, there was, 4 or 5 TV stations, right? When my mom was a kid, she probably had a couple of TV stations. When I was a kid in the 90s, it was really the boom and the rise of content and media and all these different TV shows, 24-hour news, 24-hour Cartoon Network. Like, you would really just bring in this content. It was the boom, the golden era for these big media companies creating that style of content. And what happened was they spawned off a whole bunch of different niche TV channels, things like ESPN, and then you'd have things like the X Games, which I loved, and you'd be able to find this content. And then you had the rise of the DVR. Oh, the DVR, that was huge. You have the TiVo, and then all the different satellite companies have the DVR, and you'd have this content. Well then, with the rise of phone technology and ultimately smartphones, we started to see this boom in app technology, not just desktop applications, but actual applications across the board. And we would have this supercomputer in our pocket, right? The iPhone 12 Pro here is a supercomputer, make no mistake. And so is the latest Samsung device, and so is all these latest devices are incredible. And if you look at where things are going and progressing, they've kind of hit their proverbial wall. Social media has actually done themselves in a certain way with the deplatforming. And if you look at what's coming and what's next, a lot of people talk about artificial intelligence. Well, artificial intelligence plays a huge part of the future, but the word AI has a lot more meaning than actual AI. We don't even have, look at robot technology. You talk to anybody about robots, they're going to tell you the Roomba. The Roomba's incredible, but that's about it. There's very few robots that interact in your day-to-day life. You talk to people about machine learning, and they're going to tell you about search engines. Like, really? All the machine learning, all the machines, and all the incredible things. Elon Musk in his Tesla factory actually got rid of a bunch of robots because they weren't efficient enough, and it made more sense, and it helped increase quality by bringing more people back. Because they're not smart machines, they're machines that can be programmed to do a specific task. And don't get me wrong, they do a task really, really well, some of them. You see robots in the food industry, you see robots in the auto manufacturing and manufacturing industries, but these are not smart machines. These are machines that can be programmed, whether it's a simple robotic arm like I have that I've programmed with my Raspberry Pi or Arduinos, whether it's one of my 3D printers, or whether it's a full-blown giant robot they use at a Tesla factory. They're machines that can be programmed. So when we look at what's next and we look at the Internet of Things, the Internet of Things is huge, and it's a connectivity, your network to have smart insert any device, whether it's a smart microwave or a smart fridge, whether it's a smart home or a smart car. it allows you to connect all these things. Now, from a privacy standpoint, this is a nightmare. Personally, I've never been a big fan of the smart home, and I'll never have a fully smart automated home. I don't believe in that, and I think it's actually a horrible idea. The convenience you get, you lose the amount of privacy that I'm not even remotely willing to entertain. And so what kind of option, what pivot are we going in? Well, similar to the rise of TV channels, you had the rise of apps, right? It's in this niche world. You know, when I was a kid, it was you go get what's available. I don't have very many good memories with my mom, but the few that I do have, she would take me once a year school clothes shopping. And, you know, we would go to like the outlet mall, right? We'd go to an outlet mall and you could pick your outlet. Well, similar to e-commerce today, right? E-commerce is the modern day digital outlet mall, but that outlet mall is many, many times bigger than the one in Seattle or, you know, Issaquah, Washington that we would go to, right? And the same thing with when you look at the way that content is structured. We've got this digital connectivity in a world that can include everyone. Everyone who hops on a device, whether it's a phone or a computer or whatever connected device, you're part of this digital ecosystem, this digital world. Most of us have a digital footprint, a digital life. You have social media, you have emails, you have websites, etc. In 2015, I heard a lot about the death of the website, and I said, as somebody who built online companies, I said, this is preposterous, this is ridiculous. Similar to when people said the death of the PC, the personal computer, whether it's a Mac or a Dell or whatever it is, doesn't matter. PC stands for personal computer, and a lot of people said, well, there's going to be the death of that. And it's actually on an upward trajectory because more people are creating than ever before. Creating content, creating small businesses, creating incomes, working from home. Obviously, with the world we live in, the amount of people working from home is on a massive rise. So when we look at all these things put together, you know, the amount of people who are connecting on personal computers is on a rise. The amount of people who are in a connected world on these apps are on a rise. And I'm not saying these apps are going to go anywhere. Of course they're not. But the average app you use, the average app you add, I see more people deleting apps than adding them because these markets are so full, and there's, you know, you don't need another to-do app. You don't need another financial services app. You don't need another social media. Like, none of these add any real value, and there's not enough pain to move. And now we're seeing them come and go so quick, and we've seen a massive decline in startups and startup investing. In fact, most of the famous startup investors, you know, notably Tim Ferriss, but so many startup investors don't even invest anymore. Because startups aren't worth it the way they were a few years ago. Apps aren't worth it the way they were a few years ago. We're not seeing these unicorns anymore. We're not seeing the next Uber. We're not seeing the next Google. We're not seeing, you know, the next big company on an app-based platform. What are we seeing? We're seeing things be more decentralized. I recently got on Odyssey, which is library, right? And it's a very interesting thing. I migrated this YouTube channel over to library. Nothing special. I haven't even made any original. I only did it like a day ago. I only have a few followers over there. But I just migrated over, but more of a decentralized platform. Nothing against YouTube, but you look at how these things work on a content network, and you start looking at the reason TV has been on its way out is because of mainstream content. And in the rise of small niche businesses, it makes these big companies less valuable. And in the rise of the deplatforming movement, which we've seen with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and these different sites that have started to deplatform people, more and more people are looking for niche options, which is actually the death button for these big, giant, big tech social media companies, which personally I'm happy about, and so are most of you most likely, because things are going more niche. In a world where the rise of the influencer is becoming the thing, decentralization and the rise of singularity, so having your own website, having your own hub. Like, my hub is codyhawk.com, and I talk about the projects I'm working on and businesses and things I'm doing on codyhawk.com. I have social media, but whether I use this social media or that social media, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Who cares? Because that's my hub, and more people are seeing that. I've had my hub for years. I've always said website is going to be your hub. And more people are doing that now than ever. It was a big rise in the early 2000s, and the websites petered out around 2014, 2015, because everyone's like, social media is the new thing. Nobody goes to websites. Everyone with a business has a website. And now things have come full 360, and people are like, social media is terrible because all they do is deplatform everyone. So nobody wants to put faith in these social media brands, as they shouldn't. So you're seeing a lot more niche social sites, and you're seeing the rise of influencers. And I'm talking real influence. You look at somebody, and I'm not talking the average YouTuber. Most YouTubers have no influence. Most Instagrammers or anybody, TikTokers, have no influence. That's why you see people on TikTok with 6 million followers, and their Instagram has, 28,000. Those are huge numbers. But 28,000 is a big number, and 6.4 million is a big number. But the reason is they don't have enough influence to get people to move. You take a real influencer like Logan Paul. That guy could go from Vine to Facebook, to YouTube, to Instagram, to TikTok, and he's got millions and millions of followers on each one because people will follow him to platforms. You take real influencers like iJustine or MKBHD or PewDiePie, or these people who can go to a platform and millions of people will follow them over or will come over. You look at most notably the big move of Joe Rogan this last year. He moved from all platforms to centralization in Spotify, and Spotify placed a big 9-figure bet on Joe Rogan. Now, Joe Rogan lost a huge percentage of his audience, but also a huge percentage migrated, and it doesn't matter because from a money standpoint it makes sense, and for Spotify to get that recognition. We've seen it with Mixer, and they brought Ninja over. Of course, Mixer went out of business. It was a very poor business model, but they use the same concept for the content. We're seeing the decentralization of all these things, and you look at content, because before with actors and actresses, they were owned by a studio. Literally, almost literally, you'd be locked into this deal or locked into that deal. We're seeing things more open source in an open society, and you're able to get exactly what you want. Instead of my mom taking me to the mall and saying, okay, pick an outlet, but it's going to be one of these outlets, or go to the store and, okay, you need some new whatever it is. I take my kids to a store. Hey, you need a new binder. Pick one out. There's a couple over there on the shelf. No, I just say, hey, we'll go online. We'll find anything you want. We'll buy it. It'll get shipped directly to our P.O. box, right? Good to go. And so it's that concept of the future and what's next. And you look at how these things play a role. You look at how the big tech between now and 2030. They talk about 3D printing, they talk about AI, they talk about autonomous vehicles, they even talk about smart clothing, they talk about supercomputers, they talk about the computing power of your smartphone will be more than supercomputers of 2018. So in a 5-year span, a smartphone has more computing power than the 2018 supercomputers. That is incredible. The most powerful NSA level computers of 2018 are going to have less power than the smartphones of 2023. Of course, the supercomputers catch up, but I'm just saying that's how quick the processing power is moving at this point. They're finally, after 4 decades, really getting that processing power to a point that is just off the charts, which allows the free and open nature of the average influencer and the average content creator. But it's not just about content. Content creators, it's about small businesses, it's about people being able to connect with niche communities. Social networks are no longer racing to be the next MySpace or the next Friendster. They no longer want to be the next Facebook or the next Instagram. You notice all the social networks are creating communities. You've seen Clubhouse recently trying to create these little communities in a Clubhouse. You see what Instagram's doing. You see what even TikTok, Facebook's been trying to do this for a while, and they've been failing at this for a while, creating communities. Facebook is horrible at creating communities because they want you to create a community, but they still want to be the man in charge. And nobody wants that. And so you're seeing real social platforms. You see things like, what's that one I recently just downloaded one the other day I was playing around with. Oh, MeWe. So from a privacy standpoint, MeWe is definitely a little bit better than some of them. You can go add me on MeWe. I'm Cody Hawk over there. But the reality is you play around with these communities. You build a community. So Privacy X, building a community of people interested in privacy and how to disappear in a digital world, how to have a private life, but still be able to partake in all the great things that are available. So if you look at that, you're looking at a niche society as opposed to big conglomerates. We're going to see big tech, and I want to be very clear, I don't think big tech's going to fail tomorrow. They're not going out quietly, and I don't think they're necessarily going out anytime soon. They don't have to, this isn't a zero-sum game. They don't have to die for this to come true. This has already been coming true for years now. But big tech is really kind of putting the nail in their own coffin by trying to play everyone's leader, and people are like, nah, I'll pass. I'll just go do something that's open and free. And we're seeing more people not need, Amazon. If you get booted off Amazon, you can sell on your own Shopify store. You can sell, people are on Mercari, or they're on Etsy, or they're on eBay, or there's platforms. I could name like 25 e-commerce platforms you can hop on. Maybe they're not as big as Amazon, but they're still massive, and you can still do massive numbers. And so you look at how these things work, and you look at, your options. So, I want to talk about that because the thing with apps and being plugged into this central thing, and this thing owns, because all the apps now, we own your data, we own your content. People aren't falling for that anymore. I don't know a single person. Do you know anybody who's on Facebook? My Facebook hit over 100,000 followers in what's the Facebook fan page? Was it likes or follow? I don't know. I had just over 100,000 when I deleted it, and people thought I was crazy because at the time it was my biggest social media. And you know, a lot of you probably followed me back then, and in 2016 I deleted the whole thing. I got rid of it. And what I told people was, they're basically trying to take your stuff and pawn it off as their own, and it wasn't worth it. So, and I don't know a single, like kids, there's zero kids getting out. Like Facebook's a dying dinosaur. I mean, even Instagram, most of the young generation isn't even using Instagram anymore. Things have progressed. It's typically older people you see on, well, Facebook's your grandparents. Instagram is middle-aged people and people in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And then, you know, the younger people are on TikTok, and they're on, you know, like Clubhouse will be another big one. You're seeing, you know, Byte, you're seeing Project, you're seeing a lot of these ones where the younger generations are, and it keeps pivoting, but the influence moves with them. So anyway, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up. Talking about new privacy-based, you know, entrepreneurial business side, how to disappear in a digital world here on Privacy X every single day. Put up new videos every day. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and let me know if you think that the future is niche, or if you think that the future is Facebook and Twitter. I know some people still think that's the thing, but, and again, I'm not saying big tech's going to die out. I'm just saying big tech is going to look very, very different, and big tech is not going to be so big down the line. Anyway, appreciate you guys checking this out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.